If you talk to anyone in real estate right now, be it developers or PropTech startups, everybody seems to be spending quite a bit on digital marketing through Facebook and Google. Even though everyone knows, or at least everyone has felt, that the majority of the leads, a good proportion of the leads coming from these platforms end up being junk. There are only a couple of organizations who have actually stood up and who have connected with the consumers on a deeper level. And today on our show, we have one such guest from one such organization, Mr. Prabhat Tiwary, who is the co-founder at YourOwnRoom. Join us as he candidly shares his marketing strategies, which have helped them connect with their customers through value proposition and not so much through the shine and the splash of just the paid marketing. He also shares his views on the importance of brokers in the real estate community and the future of deep technology, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, metaverse in real estate. Be back with Prabhat.
Hi Prabhat, super excited to have you with us.
Hi Digvijay, thank you.
Yeah, so tell me one thing. You have had an impressive career for spanning well over 27 years, right? And the last 7 years have been all about building your own home, right? That is when you started your entrepreneurial journey. But what really piqued my interest was, before this, you were in a corporate role in a core technology companies, not so much in real estate, right? So what attracted towards you this rental space, this real estate space, and how did this inspiration come about?
So I think that's a very that's a very good question. And when I was at Stanford Business School, I always wanted to do something of my own. This is something which is always there in the back of my mind. And what I was very clear about is that I want to do something where I could make a larger impact and solve a real world problem, something which you can touch and feel, or the minute you're out of your home or office, you can experience that problem.
Yeah.
And that is where real estate as a space was something that I was kind of attracted towards. And in my last job, where I was a senior vice president for exchanging, one of my clients, in fact, two of my clients were CBRE and CNW. Now, when I was working with these companies very closely, I was just seeing the concept of managed offices very, very closely. And that's when this whole idea triggered into my head that look at the problems in India, especially from a residential perspective. It's a huge market. The problems are very obvious. Most owners struggle to get good economic returns out of their asset. The concept of professional property management, rental management does not exist. Infrastructure in cities is still much behind than where it should be, and so on. And I could sense that there was a much larger problem to be tackled, and a more technology-based solution that had to be kind of built. And this is where I said, let me build a company which basically solves that. And YourOwnRoom today is what I would call a PropTech residential real estate asset management company. We're managing about 1 million square feet worth about 400 crores. And we are in our journey to solve that particular problem.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. Especially, I could totally relate. Like, I have had my own entrepreneurial journey before becoming the CBO of TOTALITY. The value creation, everything. It totally. I could relate to what you said there. So now that you have completed over 7 years in real estate as with running your own room, right? In that time, you might have seen, because in the last decade there has been a lot of technology adoption in real estate, right? So how have you seen this adoption in the industry, whether it's just related to pace, whether it's faster, slower, or how open do you think real estate companies are today in terms of this adoption?
So if you look at technology, real estate has always been a laggard in terms of digital adoption. It has always been fintech or for that matter, edtech, who've always taken the lead in terms of digital adoption. But today, I think with mobile phones being very pervasive, easy access to cheap data, internet, it's real estate has become a bit of a level playing field, and that's where the real difference between success and failure now comes down to technology. So, real estate as an industry has started adopting technology. Now, if you look at adoption of technology, right? Technology is a very broad term. I can broadly put them into 3 different buckets or 3 different generations. The first generation was all about what I would call property listing. This is where you have companies like Magic Bricks, 99 Acres, Housing.com, which
Yeah.
typically created a marketplace where they got all the various actors and players like buyer, seller, insurer, etc., everyone into one single tech platform, and they
Mhm.
assume that transactions will happen.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that this is at a time when Google wasn't as pervasive or Facebook wasn't as deeply entrenched, and this is where
True.
these things, had very limited results.
Yeah.
Then, if you look at the second set, you have what you call access control companies like MyGates and No Brokerhood and some of the other companies which take a very different view, but they're
Yeah.
also trying to create some sort of a marketplace where they're getting the tenants, owners, buyers, everybody under one single roof.
Yeah.
And then I think what I would say the real exciting phase is now when you have companies which have a full-blown rental property management buy and sell solution where they are hand-holding a particular customer through the entire digital journey. And this is where we look at ourselves as one of the players. We look at No Broker, we look at Square Yard, and I'm sure there are many more.
Yeah.
So if you really look at it, to me, technology is not just about a portal or an app. It's about solving a larger business problem, and this is where what we are trying to do is look at it as solving all the way from discovery and tenant management to inventory and property management to invoicing, payments across multiple gateways, running core operations, running core contracts, having dashboards, and then hopefully we're getting into resale, etc., and so on. So it's about covering the 9 yards and making sure that all the transactions are are solved using the technology platform. And I personally think today PropTech is key to solving most of these challenges, and the residential real estate market is very well positioned to take advantage of that.
Amazing, yeah. Exactly. I totally agree with you, especially in terms of technologies such as even CRMs, regular CRMs, right? Real estate has been really, really slow to pick it up. But now, especially post-COVID, there has been a lot of push from all over the fraternity. And I totally agree. It was an amazing answer. Thank you so much for that.
No, absolutely.
One thing that I always ask with PropTech startups that we are having to talk with is your experimentation, that journey of experimentation with marketing channels, right? Because as a startup, you need to figure out what is exactly going to work with you. Or work for you to connect with your customers in the right way. So what has been that journey for you, and what did you learn out of it, and what did actually eventually work for you?
So one big learning for me in the entire journey has been that when you look at rental management, property management, so what we are doing is asset management, right? Which includes these two. These are high ticket values. These are not small ticket values. And high ticket value, the sale happens more through value proposition. Now, to explain the value, to get the value proposition across is very important. I mean, when we talk to our clients, it's not about that, hey, I can get you a higher rental or to an owner, right? I can get you a higher rental. It's about the fact that we've got a solid value proposition. It's professional rental property management. We are the custodian of your asset. We're giving you rental yields, cash flow, appreciation, and so on. Similarly, from a tenant perspective, it's not just about getting an apartment in a certain micro market or certain complex. It's about giving them a service along with a good product. So what has helped us tremendously has been building a brand and basically communicating that brand proposition to the end customer. And this has worked more through all the various social media channels, more in terms of value proposition, testimonies, videos, and so on. Now, the second thing which has worked very well for us has been our inside sales team. Now, inside sales team, actually, they are much more targeted because remember, they need to be given very clear direction as to go to this micro market, pick these type of assets, look for these type of tenants. And by the way, in today's world, getting leads, like generic leads, is not very difficult. Right? True. It's about getting the right. So So what we do is we kind of work with a lot of these portals, etc. So all these top portals that you can think of, these are nothing but lead generation channels for us in addition to the others. True. So the inside sales has worked very well for us. With regards to Google AdWords, Facebook, promotions, etc. Honestly, we are yet to figure out, what is the right solution. But this can really take away a lot of the money. And I've had some. I would say, a lot of scenarios where we have burnt a lot of money, we've got very limited return, we haven't got really value out of it yet, but we are still learning in that process. So these are 3 channels. The first 2 is what I'm a big fan of.
Amazing. What you have said is absolutely true. In fact, if I talk about real estate developers and channel partners, they also do a lot of digital and in terms of branding exercises. So it basically slides into the next question that I wanted to ask. The whole point of doing unmarketing or running unmarketing for us was to show that the future of real estate is not just paid marketing, right? It's creating that brand connection with the consumer. Whether you're deploying AI to be able to enable the right communication, the right creatives, or through creating a brand awareness through value propositions and stuff like that, right? So as you correctly pointed out, in your case also, that thing has worked really, really well, right? And can you give specific examples? Like, for example, if I have to look at your startup as a consumer, I would say that price of the rent and the location is something that used to be primary at one point of time, right? So at this point of time, what are the different value propositions other than pricing and location that you propose to your customers and that really work for you?
Yeah. So if you look at us, and this is very important because, constantly we're going to look at it from 2 different channels, right? We're going to look at it from a tenant perspective as well as from an asset owner perspective. I mean, it's like if you were to look at Swiggy, you always look at it from a tenant, from a consumer perspective as well as from your partner, which is the restaurants. So similarly in our business, both of them look at things very differently. And I'll first start with the asset owner, then I'll talk a little bit about the end consumer. An asset owner, if you look at it, they are very clear in their mind. They are looking for what we call professional asset management or rental and property management. So they want someone who looks at it from start till the end and make sure that everything is taken care of, whether it is getting the property ready, getting the tenant into the asset, collecting rentals, renewals, etc. So first is that. The second is continuous cash flow and higher rental yields. I think this becomes very important because an owner looks at it as a financial product. And when you look at this as a real estate as a financial product, there are only just 2 things, right? How is it appreciating? Which means take care of my asset, the property will appreciate. Get me good rents, that's my dividend or rental yield. So that becomes the second critical thing. And third is transparency, right? Just give me full transparency. I don't expect that always give me the higher rental, but tell me what's going on in my asset, if something is wrong, etc. And that's where your technology becomes very critical because through your dashboards, both portal as well as app, you can provide all that stuff. Similarly, if you look at it from a tenant's perspective, I think a tenant typically looks for a good product. And in our business, there is product, there is service. And product, what we believe in is that you need to have good products which are safe, secure, work from home friendly homes. So this way what happens is you've solved 80 to 90% of the core problem. And remember, with cities, the way they are moving, the infrastructure is yet to keep pace. So there are these challenges which will continue to exist. So if you take a good product, you've solved a good chunk of it. And on top of it comes our services, which is, in terms of supplementing these things. So basically that's how it is. So in my view, the entire, if I can oversimplify the whole thing, this is a lot about, communicating the value proposition and then delivering on whatever value proposition that has been communicated. And I think that is very key for us to win more customers and more importantly to retain customers once they come into our listing. So you want to keep the churn also as low as possible.
Amazing. Actually, this sits in very well with the whole idea of unmarketing, right? To be able to connect with the consumer at that level, that no more paid marketing it does not give you the same outputs, but it becomes much more organic and there's a brand loyalty and everything. Amazing.
No, so if I can just add on that, so what I think the way we have started looking at things is very different now. So for a minute, let's look at it from an asset owner's perspective, right? Yeah. If there is an asset which is worth 1 crore, right? Look at the lifetime value for us if we can get things right. So first, we take the asset, we get the asset ready. So there is some cost associated in terms of getting the asset ready. Then there is rental and property management that happens for 5 years, 7 years. And then after 7 years, the owner may decide that they want to sell it off. And then, you're getting the property resale ready and helping with the resale. So a 1 crore property the lifetime value can be as high as 35 to 40 lakhs. So if you really look at it, I think this is not going to happen by paid promotions. This is going to happen by value propositions and delivering on the value proposition. So I think what we've realized in this entire journey is that bring the value proposition, sell the value proposition, and paid promotions beyond a certain point. In fact, it is good to get your brand out there so people recognize Your Own Room exists.
True.
Your Own Room, no broker, Square Yards, they're able to relate to us.
Yes.
But nothing beyond that. At the end of the day, today, when I go out in the market, when my team sells, I don't think the brand really matters. What matters is, who is able to deliver better, right? I mean, so finally, that's where the focus has to be. And then how do you scale that, right? I mean, so that's how it is.
Cool, yeah. Really amazing answer. What you said. I mean, as you correctly pointed out, paid promotions, I think, is good for recall value, right? To recollect that brand name. But yes, value proposition is the way to go ahead. Now, you mentioned a couple of startups in there, right? Or can you give me an example of a marketing strategy by a startup which really inspired you, which you found as something that you could use in your own startup?
Well, so I mean, I was just throwing some names, but if you look at some of the companies which are in a similar space or probably in the same industry, I mean, I just feel that companies like No Broker, for example, I think they do a very good job. They talk about they make sure that whatever data is sitting in the system is clean. They validate the data, right? So there's no junk data, right? I mean, so that's one thing which I like. I also find Anurag very impressive, and of course I look upon Anurag and Anuj Puri, who's the CEO, as like someone who's able to inspire me. Like Anurag, what they do a phenomenal job is basically setting the market narrative. And remember, there is a lot of education that is required for both, for the entire community, all the way from being a developer to the asset owner to being a tenant. And here, I mean, the tenant is not relevant in this case, but I think setting that entire narrative, right, and looking at macroeconomic factors and so on. So I think I really find some of these things more inspiring than billboard ads saying I've spent this much, or newspaper ads where someone is spending 40 lakhs just to put an ad. To me, that's just burning money, and I don't think there's value over there. And this is high ticket value, and that's where you need more education, more narrative based marketing than just a typical marketing.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned macroeconomics and a couple of other parameters that you usually use to judge any kind of marketing campaign and other things, right? So, as with any startup, I'm sure data analytics is really, really huge in your operations, right? So, what would you say are the top 3 metrics that you usually use to judge your current operations and the next level of strategies?
Yeah. So what we did was, when we started the company, we built our entire PropTech platform. And as I said, right, the PropTech platform that we have, which is used to run our business, which has all our business process integrated into it, it takes care of everything, all the way from discovery to inventory management to invoicing, everything, payments, etc. Now, from a sales and operation perspective, there are 3 or 4 very critical metrics for us. First is what is our asset under management, right? Asset under management in terms of value, in terms of square feet. Like, for example, our AUM is today 1 million square feet and value is about 400 crores, right? That needs to keep increasing. The second one is order book. Now, order book basically, we look at order book very closely as a multiple of our revenue, because when we are running the business, we need to make sure that we are not secured for the current year, but we are secured for the next 4, 5, 6 years. So we sign long-term contracts. So order books becomes very important. Third is utilization. Utilization basically means that I've got these many assets, how many of them I have a tenant in the assets and how many I don't have, right? If I can increase my utilization or optimize my utilization, obviously I'm getting more revenue from the same asset. And last is tenant retention, because tenant retention translates into revenue retention for us. And remember, the dilemma which we always have is how much effort do we want to put in farming versus hunting, right? Farming is basically making sure that people stay for long, etc. Of course, keep in mind that there are certain factors that decide whether people stay beyond a certain point. it could be their jobs, it could be their personal situations, or sometimes it could be some of these black swan events like COVID, etc. But we need to make sure that the retention, and I mean some of these metrics, I think we outperform some of our competitors fairly well. So these are things which we look very closely, and then there are financial metrics like revenue, margins, and cash collections, which becomes very important for us.
So one thing that you did not touch upon, and I'm sure it must also be a factor that you might be tracking, or a metric that you might be tracking, is the customer acquisition cost, right? Something related to that you spend on marketing. So when you spend on online platforms, especially you talked about Facebook and Google in the beginning, how do you track their productivity? Are you able to track the customer acquisition cost, or are you able to attribute the leads that you're getting from them, and finally, which are taking up apartments with you?
So basically what we do is, all the leads are basically captured in our CRM system, and for all the leads, we make sure that the source of the lead is also captured, right? The source can be an online platform, and it can be Magic Brick, 99 Acres, No Broker, whatever. It's our platform through which it comes. It is also through our sales team and through our partner network or broker network. So wherever it comes from, I think what we do is we are able to trace it. So that's how we are able to calculate our cost of acquisition. The second thing is that there are certain things where we also run campaigns. Right now, so whenever we run a campaign, the campaign is also tracked very separately and through the tracking. So we are able to manage and keep a very close watch on the customer acquisition cost and run the business. Now, one very important thing which we've also started doing is, in addition to our retail business, right, where these leads become very important, we are also heavily focused on what you call establishing B2B partnerships to reach out to the end consumer. So you can call it like a B2B2C strategy, right? So we are tying up with companies which typically have access to very large inventory, like 100 units, 500 units, right? Or companies which are heavily into sales and marketing, where they sell, they have been managed to sell, 10 complexes and so on. So that is being tracked separately, because that's the leads are coming through different channels, and there are more senior people in the team who are involved in nurturing those relationships.
Amazing. That's a very interesting nugget of information. So now I want to shift focus to the emerging technologies, the deep technologies, which have basically made quite a splash in real estate in the recent times, right? So, for example, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, metaverse, right? So let me take them one by one. So I want to start off with artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence obviously is a big part of the marketing platforms. Your Facebook, Google already deploy them and give you the best benefit, give you the best output. So how do you see artificial intelligence becoming a part of your operations, if you've already done something around it, and if you're using some other platforms, and how do you use that data, use those insights in your operations?
So if you look at it, AI, of course, and data intelligence, BI, AI, all these things are super critical, for us to run our business. And I think there are a lot of choices which we need to make. And the choices are, which micro markets do we acquire properties in? Which, at what price point do we acquire? Right, whether it is acquired for a co-living or for family. So there are various decisions around acquisition that needs to be done, and that is where a lot of this data helps us typically, and we are able to predict, saying that, hey, in Bilandur, the requirements are much higher and rental yields are 4.5% compared to Whitefield, where it is 3.8%. Those kind of specific details, etc. So I think it is about making decisions on acquiring. The second decision is also about asset performance. How is the asset performing? Right. I mean, if I have an asset in Vaswani or Prestige or Shobha, or maybe in some tier 2 properties, or maybe tier 3 properties, or maybe in a PG type of a setup, do I really know what the performance has been, or am I just going with my gut feeling? And this is where one thing is very clear: data never lies. So we are able to really churn that data, and we've got a solid tech team that sits and does that, and they tell us that, hey, go and acquire more properties in these things, because you get better. You're able to give better yields, and you're able to get better yields, etc. Your attrition rates are lower. The third one is looking at it from a tenant perspective, right? Which property sees too much of or what type of tenants are staying with us, why are they not staying, getting a sense of that. So what happens is then it helps us make larger strategic decisions and tactical decisions. And a service request, which properties are giving us a lot of service requests. Because remember, solving a service request means a certain cost that we have to bear. And in a city like Bangalore and Pune, I mean, if I send a blue-collared guy to a particular property, if he just goes and comes back, that itself is going to cost me money, right? So we got to be a little smart where we need to keep that less in terms of all that. So basically, it's all about asset data, it's about strategic data, it's about tenant data, and looking at all that from a technology perspective, and then making the right choices and taking the right decisions. That's how we kind of look at AI and, for that matter, BI, a lot of business intelligence, etc. That we've kind of built in.
Cool, yeah, cool. And what about VR and Metaverse? Like recently, Metaverse has been making a lot of waves, especially in terms of the digital plot being sold, right, on Meta. So, with respect to that and virtual reality, something that became really, really huge during the post-COVID lockdown phase, wherein people are not able to actually visit the sites, right? So, have you delved into it? Have you dabbled with it? And what's your viewpoint on it?
See, as far as virtual reality is concerned, I think that is relevant to our business, because when we try explaining our particular product, virtual reality solution always makes it easy, because people who come and want to stay in our product, many of them are not in the same town. Someone is coming from Delhi or Bombay or whatever, and they want to get a sense. But the biggest challenge which we see in on the ground is by looking at a VR. You cannot, and if you look at the reality, on the ground, there can be a big gap, and that actually can lead to a lot of, dissatisfaction among customers, right? Because we don't want to paint a rosy picture, and say that this is how it looks like, etc. And second, there is the cost involved. So the question which we are today debating, internally is that A, is this the right solution? And B, is the price point right? So at this point, we do not have a clear, firm answer yet from a business perspective, right? Theoretically, I'm not disagreeing. It's a great thing, right? So what we are doing is we are still using some of the more traditional methods, which is, we are putting together video recordings of the property and we are sharing. But what we realize is that people are, they're still not making decisions based on the video recording, right? They're still coming and saying, I still want to see the property. So it's like double effort for us. Right, someone comes, he sees pictures, then he sees videos, then he again comes and sees that, right? So I think from a business case perspective, I think we still don't have a very firm answer. Hopefully, maybe next time when we have a chat, Digvijay, I probably will have something to answer on that. With regards to Metaverse, I think Metaverse, I was actually invited as a judge for one of the college events. There was a very interesting event in one of the business schools over here, where we had all these colleges that have come, and I was kind of paying a lot of attention, learning from them. I feel that Metaverse is still at an early stage from our business perspective. It probably will make sense for a developer who is selling a property, right? Because remember, when you're selling a property, you have a very strong business case, because remember, basically it's just a barren land, and you're selling a barren land and you're selling a project. Now that project, somebody would have done a 2D model, 3D model. So a lot of resources exist. It's all a matter of how do you convert it and represent that in a metaverse format. Whereas in our case, at this point, we are not selling something which doesn't exist. What we are selling is something which is real. It's like, hey, go take a look at Vaswani Reserve in Bilandur, or go take a look at Shobha Habitat in near Manyata. So these are real products. So it's better that people go see that. So Metaverse, I think we still have some time before we'll have something very solid. It is still going through the hype cycle. We'll figure out.
True. It'll take some time to actually become mainstream. That's what a lot of our guests have been sharing. Okay, I want to shift gears and come to my last question, which is on the broker community in real estate, right? So traditionally, brokers have been really, really used, especially in the primary market. They enable close to about 70-80% of the sales, right? Now, you are into the leasing market, wherein also there's a lot of broker presence. So, and you did mention no broker in the beginning, who have a very different public proposition when it comes to engagement with brokers, right? So, how do you? What's your organization's take on interacting with brokers? Do you interact with brokers, or what do you feel about it?
So I feel that brokers are going to be an integral part of the residential real estate ecosystem, and they bring certain value to the table which nobody can bring. And first biggest value that they bring is hyper local intelligence.
Yeah.
Remember, real estate is a product where location matters a lot, and there are so many nuances. I mean, take a small example, right? For example, I live in Koramangala. In Koramangala, there is a road where one side of the road is Koramangala second block, the other side is third block.
Yeah.
The price per square feet is almost 20. There's a difference of 10 to 15,000 rupees per square feet. Then there's Koramangala third block and Koramangala fourth block, which is separated by just the road, which is just very close to where I'm talking to you. The difference is, in one place, property sells at 22,000 rupees per square feet. In the other place, it goes to 38,000. And these are all in public domain. Now, the question is, why is there such a difference? And the reality is that there is a certain reason behind it. There's a lot of, hyper local intelligence that is there. And that is something which someone who has spent good amount of time, effort, energy in a local area will understand that. And this is something which a broker understands better than anybody else, because they have dedicated a good amount of their time towards some of these things. So I feel that nobody can replace brokers easily. But then brokers, there are two categories: people who understand, and then there are people who are like just trying to cut an easy deal, and make money. I think those guys will go away, because remember, information exists, right? Basic information which is there in public domain today, you don't need, right? I mean, which property is where, what's on the right side, what's on the left side, a lot of stuff is all there in public domain. But the nuances, they're all missing. So our public stated position is very clear that we see brokers to be part of it. We want to partner with the right set of brokers, and we work with brokers. And what we have seen is that they bring a lot of complementary value. And second, getting brokers also creates a much more scalable business. So instead of hiring 100 people, and keeping many of them idle, and then laying them off, etc. I would rather create a business model where we have brokers who come and work with us on specific mandates. So that makes the entire business scalable pan-India, not just Bangalore, right? And we use brokers in Bangalore, we use them in Pune, and when we launch new cities, we would like to partner with them, both from a asset acquisition as well as from a tenant acquisition perspective.
Okay, amazing here.